Hey everyone, welcome back to the Recovery Channel. Well, the time has come, my friends, the dreaded Step 4 inventory. Ask anyone that's been through it, and they'll tell you it is by far the hardest step. If they don't tell you that, they probably didn't do it right. This is the part of the journey where we lift up the hood, give denial the single finger salute, and get brutally honest with ourselves. We may be writing down stuff we swore to ourselves we'd take to the grave. This is where you find strength that you never imagined you had. Well, there you go again, man, scaring the bejesus out of us, and we ain't even 60 seconds in. I know, and you'd be crazy not to be at least a little scared. Getting over a disease is rarely easy or pain-free. We need to surgically remove the cancer that is our addiction in order to be free from it. We don't do this surgery with a scalpel. We start by making a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. That is how we identify the cancer and where it lives. In step 5, we tell somebody about it, so we're not carrying the burden by ourselves. In step 6 and 7, we ask our higher power to remove it. Now, here at the Recovery Channel, we don't just leave that to our higher power. We take a much more active role in removing our shortcomings than most 12-step programs would have us do. But that's for later. Let's get back to step 4. Next week, Chris is going to introduce you to the mechanics of the inventory and start explaining exactly how to fill out the sheets. You'll basically be writing down a list of the possible things that caused and keep you in the addiction. That list will serve as the basis for steps 5 through 9, so it's really important to be as thorough as you can. Given how important this step is, we're going to spend the next 8 weeks on it. Well, you'll be spending the next 8 weeks on it. We'd run out of things to say about step 4 long before that, so we're going to actually be providing you with other information that will help you get through the hard parts of doing your inventory and just help you in general. A couple of those things come from something called DBT, and we're actually going to talk about one of those right now. One of the hardest parts about step 4 is that it brings up things from the past that are painful to look at. Lots of them. All of them. We need to make sure we're paying attention to our feelings before they overwhelm us and we risk running to our addiction for comfort. One of the best tools for doing this is called mindfulness. Now, the DBT people didn't invent mindfulness. It's been around for quite some time. But I like the way DBT makes it practical and simple to understand. Mindfulness is defined as the quality or state of being conscious or aware of something, or a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations. Now, this is not some airy-fairy, let's go sit on a mountaintop and chant stuff. It is simply being present and noticing what's going on. You may be thinking, well, don't we do that all the time? Think about it. How often do you actually just sit calmly and think about what's going on right now? How often do you notice smells and sounds when they aren't annoying you? Do you ever take a pause to notice what's going on with your body? Do you notice how you're feeling? Most of us don't do any of that. We're thinking about the past, what we should have said to that guy on Twitter, what our third grade teacher once said to us, how he screwed up at work. Or thinking about the future, what's next? I'm home and I need to go out. I'm out, I need to go home. I have that test next week. What am I going to do about my kid? Most of us actually spend very little time living in the present moment. That's all mindfulness is. Noticing what's going on right now. It's harder than it sounds. Our minds are wired to constantly be on the lookout for danger. That's why we worry so much about the future and tend to see things negatively. But it is possible. It just requires a conscious effort to slow our mind down enough to focus on what is right in front of us, what's all around us, what is in us. We're learning about this right now because it's going to help us with step 4. But it's actually a lifelong tool we can use to stay centered and in touch with ourselves and the world around us. We're using it in step 4 because we want to notice as soon as possible if we are getting triggered so we can take a pause and do something about it. Okay, so how does it work? Like I said, we're going to use the DBT method because it's practical and so easy even I can understand it. We're going to start with the easiest things to notice, and those are through our senses: touch, smell, sight, sound, and taste. We'll spend a week doing exercises that just focus on our senses. Amazingly, you're going to realize that you start noticing other things too. It's a discipline that your brain will pick up quickly. After we've done that for a week, we'll start doing exercises to notice how our body feels, what sensations are happening, getting a new perspective on our physical being. Then we get to our emotions, noticing when we get angry, sad, aroused, frustrated, happy, triggered. Today, we're going to start with the senses. Now, before we start, let's talk about the tools we use to develop the skill. Mindfulness is a skill that we need to develop, and like any skill, there's a technique, there are tools. There's a link to a document that explains all of this in the comments. If you want, pause the video, pull that up, or you can just watch for now and download it later. The first set of tools is what we do and how we do it. What we do is we observe, describe, and participate. Observing is done through our senses. We take in the sensation and we notice it. Then we describe it. Now here's the trick and the really hard part. We describe without judgment. Nothing is good or bad, worthwhile or useless. It just is. If you're petting a rabbit, it's just soft. It's not nice. If you smell garlic, it's pungent, not nasty. You describe things in a factual way without evaluating them. Okay, so we're observing and describing, and we're doing it without judgment. The next skill is that we do it mindfully, and we participate fully. This is where being present really comes in. When we're making our observations, we really try to focus on only what we're observing. We block out other distractions and totally focus on and participate in what we are doing. When other thoughts enter our minds, which they always do, we just let them pass through and say, I'll deal with you later. Right now, I'm doing this. Okay, you ready to give it a try? Here we go. We're going to start with a sense of touch. If there is someone else around, ask them to hand you an object. It can be anything as long as it's easy to hold and turn over in your hands. You're going to close your eyes so you don't know what it is. If there isn't anybody around, that's okay. Just pick something up and then close your eyes. Go ahead and pause this while you go get something. Okay, now what you're going to do is feel the object and come up with as many descriptive words as you can. The point is not to try to guess what the object is. The point is to describe it without saying what it is. And remember, we're not using any judging words, only facts. Pause the video again without looking at the object and spend about 3 to 5 minutes coming up with as many describing words as possible. All right, good work. The purpose of this exercise is to get you used to the idea of being fully engaged in the activity and describing what your senses are telling you. The idea of not judging what you sense is really important, and you'll see why later when we get to describing our feelings. If you do find yourself judging, that's okay. It's what our brains are designed to do. It's a hardwired survival instinct to make snap judgments about things. Back when the world was full of things that wanted to eat us, it's how our ancestors survived. Now that the world is a more tame place, we don't need that level of judgment. But unfortunately, it's taking our brains longer to evolve than the world around us. So don't judge yourself for judging. It's natural and normal. We just want to get away from it to the extent that we can because it's going to help us get out of our shame cycle. More on that in a couple of weeks. Now, the next part of this exercise is actually your homework. This week, you're going to go through this same process at least once for each of your senses. So one day, you will spend 10 minutes with your eyes closed just listening to the sounds around you. You'll focus your attention on nothing but the sounds and describe them without judgment. I did this once in a busy shopping mall. It was really cool. For taste, pick a meal, and for the duration of that meal, focus only on the taste of the food. Don't watch TV or play music, just focus on the taste and describe it, again, without judgment. One sense at a time, 10 minutes per day for the next 4 days. Share your experiences in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. For the next 2 weeks, Chris is going to talk about the inventory and get you started on that. At the end of each video, we'll spend a few more minutes talking about the next step in our mindfulness exercises. Again, we're doing this to give you some tools to help get you through this difficult but valuable and necessary step in your journey. In the meantime, be well, stay sober, and make sure you do your homework. We'll see you next week.